From Friday's jobs report to new tariffs on our global trading partners, the Trump economy is giving us plenty to discuss. Without further ado, let's now bring in one of the world's most renowned economists. Joseph Stiglitz is a recipient of the Nobel Prize in Economics, a university professor at Columbia. He's the chief economist at the Roosevelt Institute. He's held positions, an array of positions, including senior vice president and chief economist of the World Bank and the chair of the U.S. Council of Economic Advisors. He's the author. There's a reason I'm telling you all this stuff, because this guy actually understands economics. He's the author of numerous books, including The Road to Freedom, Economics and the Good Society, and the Origins of Inequality and Policies to Contain It. Joseph Stiglitz, welcome back to the show. Good to see you.
Nice to be here.
I bring you in because at the best of times, economics can be confusing. But this week, there's been a lot of things that are confusing, layered on with the White House coloring certain things. Now, look, historically, you and I both know White House's color reports the way they want. But some interesting things have happened. I want to start with one of the most alarming. A problematic jobs report came out on Friday, or at least problematic to the White House, but problematic to the economy. And then they fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, a job most people didn't know existed. It's a statistical type of job. They politicized it, and they fired this person, saying that this was a Biden appointee and a Biden partisan.
It's terrible what has happened. It's very, very important for people in business, for everybody to be able to believe the statistics about unemployment, about inflation, about GDP. If you don't believe those statistics, it's like driving a car with no odometer, with no mileage, no gas tank, flying a plane with no instruments. It's really important for managing business and managing the economy to have reliable statistics. And that's why over the years, we have created independent statistical agencies to collect that data. Republicans and Democrats have agreed that having confidence in the independence of the statistics is first order. I'll tell you a story. When I was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, the statistical agencies were going to revise the way we do our GDP and inflation numbers. Very technical thing, going from a Laspere index to a chain-weighted index. This is really, you don't have to understand what it is. And the result of that was that growth would be a little slower and inflation a little bit higher. And it was right before the election. And President Clinton was not very happy. And he said, "Can't we change this?" And we said, "No, you may be the president, but the preservation of the independence of the statistical agencies is of first order importance. And you, Mr. President, cannot change this." Well, President Clinton understood the importance of the independence of the Bureau of Labor Statistics and accepted our advice. And, over the next 30 years, there's been confidence in those numbers.
And look, I get presidents through history have wanted things to be a certain way. They probably have wanted interest rates to be lower. They put pressure on Fed chairs. Talk to me about this whole pressure campaign on Fed Chair Jerome Powell. It's been going on for a while. It seems to have accelerated while Donald Trump's trying to distract from other matters that concern him. But visiting the Fed, trying to get the Fed chief fired. Why should the average person care about any of this?
Well, the reason is very simple, that we want in our society that the interest rates be set in a way that is not politicized. If it's politicized, the fear is that right before the elections, interest rates will go down, you'll inflate the economy, and you'll get the inflation after the election, and you get good GDP numbers before the election. but it's going to be very bad for the economy. And so that's why for countries all over the world, not just the United States, all over the world, there's been a view that there should be independence of the central bank from politics. Now, that doesn't mean you can't discuss your views about where the economy is going, but to put pressure in the way that Donald Trump has done is unconscionable, because it undermines the credibility of the Fed. And then if you undermine the credibility of the Fed, people will say, we're going to wind up with inflation. We're going to, we're not going to have economic stability and confidence, not only in the US dollar, but confidence in the US economy will erode.
In a whirlwind of economic developments, the Trump administration's recent actions have sparked intense debate, blending policy, politics, and economic data in ways that could reshape public trust and global markets. The catalyst: a troubling jobs report released on Friday, followed by the abrupt dismissal of the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz, a towering figure in economics with a resume spanning the World Bank, Columbia University, and the Clinton administration, joined a discussion to unpack these events, emphasizing their far-reaching implications. The jobs report, described as problematic for both the White House and the broader economy, painted a less-than-rosy picture of employment trends. While specifics of the report weren't detailed, its release triggered a swift and controversial response: the firing of the BLS chief, a position typically insulated from political crosswinds. The administration labeled the official a Biden appointee and partisan, framing the dismissal as a correction of bias. However, Stiglitz underscored the danger of this move, likening reliable economic statistics to a car's odometer or a plane's instruments. Without trustworthy data on unemployment, inflation, or GDP, businesses and policymakers are effectively driving blind. The BLS, like other independent statistical agencies, exists to provide impartial data, a principle upheld by both parties for decades. Stiglitz recounted a telling anecdote from his time as chair of the Council of Economic Advisers under President Clinton. When a technical adjustment to GDP and inflation calculations threatened to dampen growth numbers before an election, Clinton was unhappy but accepted that the independence of statistical agencies was non-negotiable. This precedent, Stiglitz argued, has preserved confidence in U.S. economic data for over 30 years until now. The politicization of the BLS is part of a broader pattern of pressure on independent institutions. Stiglitz highlighted the Trump administration's ongoing campaign against Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, with efforts to influence or even oust him. This isn't new. Presidents have long grumbled about interest rates, but Trump's approach has been unusually aggressive, seemingly intensified to deflect from other controversies. Why does this matter to the average person? Stiglitz explained that an independent Federal Reserve sets interest rates based on economic realities, not political calendars. If politicized, rates could be artificially lowered before elections to juice GDP numbers, only to spark inflation and economic instability afterward. This isn't a hypothetical concern. Countries worldwide prioritize central bank independence to avoid such cycles. Trump's tactics, Stiglitz warned, risk eroding confidence in both the Fed and the US dollar, potentially destabilizing the global economy. These events unfold against a backdrop of new tariffs on global trading partners, adding another layer of complexity to the Trump economy. While tariffs aim to protect domestic industries, they could raise costs for consumers and disrupt trade relationships, further clouding the economic outlook. Stiglitz's critique is clear: undermining institutions like the BLS and the Fed threatens the credibility of the U.S. economy itself. When businesses and investors lose faith in economic data or monetary policy, the ripple effects, higher inflation, weaker growth, diminished global trust, could hit everyday Americans the hardest. This saga, rooted in real events, underscores a critical tension: the balance between political ambition and the integrity of independent institutions. As Stiglitz sees it, the stakes couldn't be higher. Reliable data and apolitical monetary policy aren't just bureaucratic niceties, they're the bedrock of economic stability. With the administration's actions raising alarms, the question looms, will short-term political gains come at the cost of long-term economic trust? For now, the world watches as the Trump economy navigates this precarious path.